you kidding me? I devoted 2 hours of national television time to try to find your son. And I have asked you to do things to eliminate yourself so we can direct resources to other people, and you won't do one damn thing to help.
You should be doing backflips right now to take this polygraph test. You were the last person to have seen your son before he disappeared.
At the heart of this tragedy was 13-year-old Dylan Redwine, a boy on the cusp of manhood. Dylan lived with his mother Elaine in Colorado Springs. Life wasn't always easy, his parents were divorced, and the separation weighed heavily on him. Despite the challenges, Dylan remained a beacon of joy, his infectious laughter echoing through the halls of his school. He was a typical teenager, navigating the complexities of adolescence, his heart filled with dreams of a bright future. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The crisp November air hung heavy with anticipation as Dylan arrived at his father's house on the 18th. The picturesque beauty of Vallecito did little to ease the tension. Dylan's reluctance to visit was no secret. The following day, Mark Redwine made a chilling call. Dylan was gone. He had vanished without a trace. Panic surged through Elaine. How could her son simply disappear? The community rallied, their breath held hostage by the mystery. Search parties scoured the rugged terrain. Days bled into weeks, winter tightening its hold on Vallecito. The question echoed, where was Dylan Redwine? The answer, hidden in this idyllic mountain town, was sinister. Dylan's relationship with his father was complex, a tangled web of affection and resentment. The divorce had taken its toll, leaving Dylan caught in the middle of a bitter custody battle. Weekends at his father's were often strained, filled with an undercurrent of tension that Dylan struggled to understand. Mark Redwine, a rugged outdoorsman, often seemed distant and emotionally unavailable to his son. He struggled to connect with Dylan on his level, his attempts at fatherly bonding often falling flat. Dylan, sensitive and yearning for his father's approval, felt increasingly isolated and misunderstood. The picturesque backdrop of Vallecito, with its towering pines and pristine lake, did little to bridge the gap between them. Dylan longed for the familiar comfort of his mother's embrace, the easy banter he shared with his friends back in Colorado Springs. The tension between Dylan and Mark was not a recent development. It had been simmering for years. There were whispers of arguments, of clashes between Mark's strict demeanor and Dylan's burgeoning independence. Some spoke of a darker side to Mark, a temper that flared quickly, leaving Dylan feeling intimidated and small. One incident in particular cast a long shadow over their relationship. Dylan had stumbled upon something he shouldn't have: compromising photos of his father, images that shattered the image of the man he thought he knew. The discovery left Dylan feeling confused, hurt, and deeply betrayed. He confided in his mother and brother, his words laced with a mix of anger and disgust. The secret, once buried, now festered like an open wound, driving a wedge between father and son. Mark, aware of Dylan's discovery, dismissed it as a misunderstanding, but the damage was done. In the age of social media, teenagers wear their hearts on their sleeves, their digital footprints revealing their innermost thoughts and fears. Dylan was no different. His texts to friends and family painted a vivid picture of his apprehension about visiting his father. "I don't want to go," he typed, his words heavy with a sense of foreboding. "He's been weird, and I just want to stay home." His messages were a cry for help, a desperate plea to avoid the impending visit. To some, these messages might have seemed like typical teenage angst, but to those who knew Dylan best, they were red flags, warning signs of a deeper turmoil. His friends urged him to talk to his mother, to confide in someone who could help, but Dylan, perhaps out of a sense of loyalty or fear, remained silent. As the day of his departure approached, Dylan's reluctance morphed into full-blown dread. He packed his bag slowly, each item a reminder of the life he was leaving behind, his friends, his school, the comfort of his mother's love. The thought of spending a week alone with his father in the isolated mountains of Vallecito filled him with a chilling sense of unease. His mother, sensing his fear, tried to reassure him. She promised to call every day, to be there for him no matter what. But her words did little to ease the knot of anxiety that tightened in Dylan's chest. He knew deep down that something was wrong, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of impending doom, Dylan Redwine embarked on a journey that would forever alter the course of his life, a journey from which he would never return. The morning mist clung to Vallecito like a shroud, obscuring the landscape in an ethereal haze. It was November 19, 2012, and Dylan Redwine had vanished. One moment he was there, a restless teenager sleeping off a long journey. The next, he was gone, swallowed whole by the vast expanse of the Colorado wilderness. Mark Redwine, Dylan's father, was the first to report him missing. He told authorities a harrowing tale. He had woken early, leaving Dylan asleep to run errands in nearby Durango. Upon his return, the house stood eerily silent, Dylan's absence a gaping hole in the heart of their rented cabin. Frantic calls were made, the Redwine family thrown into a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Elaine, miles away in Colorado Springs, received the news with a chilling certainty. Something was terribly wrong. Dylan would never willingly abandon his phone, his lifeline to the world, yet it lay discarded, silent and cold. As news of Dylan's disappearance spread, a collective gasp rippled through Vallecito and beyond. The idyllic mountain town, once a sanctuary from the outside world, found itself thrust into the harsh glare of the media spotlight. Search parties were hastily assembled, volunteers combing the unforgiving terrain, their hopes clinging to every rustling leaf, every broken twig. Days turned into weeks, the relentless march of time doing little to quell the growing unease. The initial shock morphed into gnawing suspicion, fueled by the lack of concrete leads and the cloud of mystery surrounding Dylan's disappearance. Whispers began to circulate, hushed conversations casting doubt on Mark Redwine's version of events. The tranquility of Vallecito Lake, once its defining feature, now seemed to mock the town's sorrow. Its depths, reflecting the snow-capped peaks, held secrets, silent whispers of a tragedy too terrible to comprehend. Dylan Redwine was gone, and as the days grew shorter, so too did the hope of finding him alive. In the midst of the growing uncertainty, Mark Redwine made a public plea for his son's safe return. He appeared on national television, his face a mask of grief, his voice thick with emotion as he begged for any information that could lead him back to Dylan. "Please, if anyone knows anything," he implored, his eyes pleading with the camera, "bring my son home." His words struck a chord with many, their hearts breaking for the distraught father desperately seeking his lost son. But others saw through the facade, their intuition whispering that something wasn't right. Mark's demeanor, though seemingly racked with grief, lacked a certain authenticity, a raw desperation that one would expect from a parent facing such unimaginable loss. The public, always eager to dissect a tragedy, began to scrutinize his every word, every gesture. The more they saw, the more they heard, the louder the whispers grew, questioning Mark Redwine's innocence and casting a dark shadow over the investigation. As the investigation deepened, cracks began to appear in Mark Redwine's carefully constructed narrative. Detectives, trained to spot inconsistencies, noted discrepancies in his timeline. His movements on the day of Dylan's disappearance shrouded in a fog of vague explanations and convenient memory lapses. Cadaver dogs, brought in to scour the Redwine cabin and Mark's truck, reacted strongly to the scent of human remains, their behavior raising more questions than answers. The focus, once diffuse, began to narrow, a spotlight of suspicion falling squarely on Dylan's own father. The idyllic facade of Vallecito, the charming image of a father desperately searching for his son, was crumbling, revealing a far more sinister reality. The whispers, once hesitant, now swirled with a chilling certainty. Dylan Redwine was gone, and the answer to his disappearance lay somewhere in the dark secrets lurking beneath the surface of this once peaceful mountain town. Months turned into an agonizing wait, each sunrise a cruel reminder of Dylan's absence. Then, in June 2013, a hiker stumbled upon a child's skull, bleached white by the elements, hidden amongst the trees on Middle Mountain. The location, miles from the Redwine cabin, sent chills down investigators' spines. This was no accident. Forensic experts confirmed their worst fears. The skull belonged to Dylan Redwine. The news shattered the fragile hope of Dylan's loved ones. The boy with the infectious laugh was gone, ripped away by an act of unimaginable cruelty. The case transformed from a missing persons investigation into a homicide inquiry. Suspicion surrounding Mark Redwine escalated into a deafening roar. The nation, once filled with sympathy, now demanded justice for Dylan. The discovery of Dylan's remains shifted the sands of the investigation, casting a harsh light on Mark Redwine's every move. His inconsistencies, once easily dismissed, now loomed large, each discrepancy scrutinized under the microscope of suspicion. The evidence, though circumstantial, was damning. Traces of Dylan's blood, meticulously scrubbed but not entirely eradicated, were found in the living room of Mark's cabin. Cadaver dogs, their senses attuned to the scent of death, reacted strongly to Mark's truck, their insistent behavior painting a grim picture. The tranquility of Vallecito Lake, once a source of solace and recreation, now seemed to hold a sinister secret. Divers scoured its depths, their movements slow and deliberate, searching for any sign of Dylan, any clue that could help unravel the mystery of his final moments. Months stretched into years, the wheels of justice turning slowly, agonizingly slow for a family desperate for closure. Mark Redwine, though named a person of interest, maintained his innocence, his stoic demeanor a constant source of frustration for those who believed him guilty. The weight of suspicion, however, took its toll. Mark's life, once defined by the rugged beauty of the Colorado wilderness, became consumed by the shadow of Dylan's death. He retreated from the public eye, his once familiar face now a symbol of tragedy and unanswered questions. Yet, through it all, Elaine Hall, Dylan's mother, never wavered in her pursuit of justice. She became her son's voice, her grief a powerful motivator as she tirelessly campaigned for Mark Redwine's arrest, her unwavering belief in his guilt a beacon of hope in the darkness. Elaine Hall became a haunting presence, her face a constant reminder of the tragedy that had befallen her family. Her grief, raw and unrelenting, resonated with people across the nation, her strength in the face of unimaginable loss, a testament to the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. She organized vigils, her voice hoarse from speaking her son's name, her eyes reflecting both the depths of her sorrow and the steely determination that fueled her fight for justice. She met with investigators, poring over the evidence, clinging to every detail, desperate for any shred of information that could bring her closer to the truth. Elaine Hall refused to let Dylan's memory fade. She became a fierce advocate for her son, using her platform to raise awareness about the case, to keep the pressure on law enforcement, her unwavering belief in her son's right to justice a beacon of hope in the darkness. Despite the mounting evidence and the cloud of suspicion hanging over Mark Redwine, doubts lingered. Some questioned the lack of a definitive motive, while others pointed to the absence of a murder weapon or eyewitnesses. The passage of time, too, had taken its toll, memories fading, details becoming obscured by the relentless march of time. The defense, as expected, seized upon these uncertainties, constructing a narrative of reasonable doubt. They painted Mark Redwine as a flawed but loving father, a man wrongfully accused, a victim of circumstance, and the court of public opinion. The stage was set for a trial that would captivate the nation, a legal battle that would pit father against son, truth against deception, and test the very foundations of justice in the shadow of the Colorado mountains. Years of whispers culminated in July 2017. Mark Redwine was indicted for his son's murder. The charges sent shockwaves through the nation. The indictment marked the start of a journey towards justice. Yet, uncertainty lingered. Time had eroded memory, leaving a fragmented narrative. The trial faced delays, frustrating those seeking resolution. Legal wrangling and circumstantial evidence kept the community in limbo. Four long years after his indictment, Mark Redwine finally faced a jury of his peers. The trial, held in Durango, Colorado, became a focal point for the nation. The courtroom transformed into a stage for a real-life drama, a tragedy played out in the harsh glare of the media spotlight. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Christian Champagne, laid out a chilling narrative, a story of simmering rage and a father's ultimate betrayal. They painted a picture of Mark Redwine, a man consumed by anger over the discovery of compromising photos, his resentment towards his son festering into a murderous rage. The prosecution presented a meticulously constructed case, relying on a combination of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and Dylan's own words, preserved in text messages and online conversations, to weave a tapestry of guilt around Mark Redwine. The courtroom, packed with observers and reporters, crackled with anticipation, the weight of the accusations hanging heavy in the air. The prosecution's case hinged on the forensic evidence painstakingly gathered and analyzed over years of investigation. Traces of Dylan's blood, discovered in the living room of Mark Redwine's cabin, pointed to a violent struggle, a desperate attempt to conceal a horrific crime. Cadaver dog alerts, both at the cabin and in Mark Redwine's truck, further solidified the prosecution's narrative. The dogs, trained to detect the scent of human remains, reacted strongly in key locations, their behavior suggesting that Dylan's body had been present, transported under the cover of darkness. The prosecution also presented evidence of Mark Redwine's erratic behavior in the days and weeks following Dylan's disappearance. His inconsistent statements to law enforcement, his shifting alibis, and his attempts to deflect suspicion onto others painted a picture of a guilty conscience, a man desperately trying to outrun the truth. The defense, led by public defender John Moran, faced an uphill battle. They countered the prosecution's narrative with a story of a tragic accident, a young boy lost in the unforgiving wilderness, his death compounded by a rush to judgment and a flawed investigation. They argued that the lack of a definitive murder weapon, the absence of eyewitnesses, and the possibility of animal activity in the remote area where Dylan's remains were found cast reasonable doubt on the prosecution's theory of a premeditated murder. The defense attempted to portray Mark Redwine as a grieving father, a man unfairly targeted by a biased investigation and a media frenzy eager to paint him as a monster. They urged the jury to consider the lack of concrete proof, to resist the allure of a compelling narrative, and to deliver a verdict based solely on the facts presented in court. After weeks of testimony, the fate of Mark Redwine rested in the hands of the jury. The weight of their decision, the burden of delivering justice for a young life cut short, hung heavy in the air. The courtroom, silent with anticipation, became a pressure cooker of emotions, the tension palpable as the jurors filed in, their faces etched with the gravity of their task. The verdict, delivered after days of deliberation, sent a collective gasp through the courtroom. Guilty. Mark Redwine, the man who had proclaimed his innocence for nearly a decade, was convicted of second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. The verdict, a testament to the perseverance of law enforcement, the strength of the prosecution's case, and the unwavering pursuit of justice by Dylan's family, brought a sense of closure, a bittersweet victory tinged with the profound sadness of a young life lost. On October 8, 2021, Mark Redwine was sentenced to 48 years in prison. The sentence provided solace to Dylan's family, a sense that justice had finally been served. Vallecito Lake has slowly begun to heal, its beauty a reminder of the young life lost. The town symbolizes the fragility of life and the power of hope and resilience. Dylan's story is a cautionary tale in true crime. His legacy inspires efforts to protect children. No family should endure the pain of a child lost too soon. The guilty verdict brought a wave of relief, a sense that justice had been served. Mark Redwine, who silenced his son's voice, would spend his days behind bars. Yet, the victory felt hollow, overshadowed by the immeasurable loss. A lifetime sentence could never compensate for the years stolen from Dylan. Elaine Hall spoke for a community united in sorrow, her love enduring. Dylan's absence was a stark reminder that no punishment could heal the wounds. The trial reopened old wounds, forcing a community to confront its darkness. Despite the guilty verdict, a sense of incompleteness lingered, a nagging awareness that some questions might never be answered. The trial, though meticulously constructed by the prosecution, had failed to provide a definitive motive for Dylan's murder. What exactly had transpired in those final moments between father and son? What thoughts had raced through Dylan's mind as he faced his own father's rage? The absence of a murder weapon, a physical link between intention and act, further fueled the lingering uncertainty. Had Mark Redwine acted impulsively, driven by a sudden surge of anger, or had he planned Dylan's demise, his actions fueled by a cold, calculated malice? The answers, lost somewhere in the depths of Mark Redwine's twisted psyche, remained elusive, a source of endless speculation and frustration for those who sought a complete understanding of the tragedy. The truth, as is often the case in matters of the heart, remained shrouded in shadow, a chilling reminder of the limitations of human justice. In the aftermath of the trial, Vallecito Lake began its slow journey towards healing. The scars of tragedy, though forever etched in the town's memory, gradually faded beneath the relentless beauty of nature. The laughter of children echoed once more through the towering pines, a testament to the enduring power of hope. Dylan Redwine's legacy extended beyond the small Colorado town, igniting a national conversation about child safety. Support groups formed, resources expanded, and efforts to address child abuse and neglect intensified. Dylan's story became a catalyst for change, illuminating the path towards a safer future for all children.